Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Tech and Tactile podcast. As always, my name is Cody,
And I'm Michael.
and today, oh boy, I went off on a tangent. I had to go and I had to reclaim some of my lost childhood past that I didn't get to experience, and boy, let me tell you, I was
Indeed.
really disappointed. Holy crap, I was really disappointed. Man, you'd think, like, the first emulation compilation that I got to play on the Sega Dreamcast would have been, like, super cool and everything, and I really enjoyed it, and then to find out that, you know, the Sega Smash Pack quote-unquote games, like, had a continuation, and it turns out I'm glad I didn't find out about them, because
Oh boy.
I got to try out Volume 2 on the GBA, and boy,
What a disappointment that was.
good games, bad port.
Oh yeah.
All I can say. Like, I get it. If it's your first time experiencing them on the go, for effort, I guess, but like the Game Boy Advance, we weren't ready to get compilations of older games on the GBA. I think there were better alternatives out there that I would love to get that I'll definitely be talking about, but oh boy, I mean like Sonic Spinball, I know that game would be something I would consider to be, like, you know, fantastic. I love it. It's nostalgic for me. I think it's a pretty fun game. Hard but fun. But the Game Boy Advance version just doesn't do it justice. Let me tell you, that sound font,
Oh boy,
ugh.
that poor sound chip. Was struggling.
It was awful. And then they did it to Golden Axe. Like, Golden Axe was in this compilation. It was Sonic Spinball, Golden Axe, and Echo the Dolphin.
Correct.
Weirdly enough, like,
Correct.
so yeah, Sonic Spinball. I couldn't even make it past Toxic Caves. I just the sound chip was just so. It sounded like, how do I describe it? Like everything was wrapped in paper. Like,
yeah,
I don't know,
like a tinfoil type vibe.
Yeah, like it was just. I get it. The Game Boy Advance's sound chip was never to be that good, but holy crap, I would have not liked that as a kid, or I would have been that, you know, annoying kid playing with no headphones in the car, and my mom would have been like, "For God's sakes, turn that shit off, or I'm throwing it out the window," because like the music is like god awful. And I swear, video game music is good, Mom. I swear, but this is not one of them. But
yep.
Then there's Golden Axe. Golden Axe really disappointed me. That was like the most disappointing thing in the package, because I seriously beat the whole thing super quick. And I get Golden Axe is a pretty short game, but it felt like they took out the boss fights. Like it was missing, like the stages were there in somewhat. But
yeah, because when we went through it, it seemed like a really long, stretched out piece of patchwork. Like nothing was all flowing correctly, and it wasn't all patched and placed together like it was originally on the Genesis back in the day.
Like, don't get me wrong, they got the sprites. They got the magic is terrible. It looks like JPEGs. Like you thought that the magic was kind of basic looking on the Genesis version. Like try the Game Boy version, but oh boy, my god,
that frame rate.
Yeah, that frame rate. And then not to mention they got the in between sections with the text crawl and everything. That stayed. But they basically didn't keep, they only had like I think 1 to 2 musical tracks, which is like stage 1 and then the boss theme.
Yeah, they just kept switching back and forth.
And then the bonus level stage theme where you beat the crap out of the beggars or whatever they are to get the potions.
Right.
I had that. I mean, but oh my god, it sounded even worse. It sounded like my Game Boy Advance was going to catch on fire. My quote-unquote legally obtained Game Boy Advance cartridge. Then there was Echo the Dolphin, and this is an underrated Sega Genesis game for me. I've talked about it before, but honestly, like it's hard. It's got its problems, but the Game Boy Advance makes them 10 times worse.
Yep.
Like I've only heard like 1 track throughout the whole game, if not maybe 2.
I don't even think there was 2, because it was all the same stuff.
Yeah, and Echo the Dolphin's music is pretty calming and serene as far as I remember. Like I mean, it's been a while since I've seen the play through the whole game. The one thing I'll always remember about Echo the Dolphin is that final flipping level. But you know, everyone who got there will know what the pain. I was not about to do that on the GBA. I beat Golden Axe. I could barely get through Toxic Caves and Sonic Spinball because I just could not deal with the music. And then I wasn't dealing with the screen crunch of Echo the Dolphin.
Right.
Childhood me, definitely. I was fine with Sonic Advance. I moved on. The Dreamcast died. The GameCube came out. Sonic Advance came in my life, and I'm glad I played that instead of what I played there. Oh boy.
Yeah, for sure, definitely.
That's really all I really have to say about Sega. I mean, I went on that long Sega tangent. I will always have a soft spot for Sega Smash Pack, even though it's not the best way to play things. It's probably the most nostalgic little. That main menu theme will always be in my head. That crunchy, funky techno theme that it would do. I loved it.
That menu theme was great.
And then, yeah. But
so kind of switching gears from our Sega tangent from last week, we wanted to talk about a collection that quite possibly may dethrone Sega and its collections. For those of you who don't know, there was another rival company at the time that had a large, no pun intended, but museum of its titles, Namco Museum, and we were going to go over those today.
I mean, who the hell doesn't know who Namco is, man? Come on. Like, everyone knows who Namco is. Have you played Pac-Man? If you haven't played Pac-Man and you play video games, then there's something wrong with you. How could you have not played Pac-Man? If you were this... if you have not found a way to play Pac-Man in some form of way, whether you're at an at a little arcade or doing something, I promise you, like, someone has played some sort of some form of Pac-Man in their life. And by God, they're going to sell it to you. Like, I grew up with so many Namco Museum games. It's ridiculous. I had one on the PS1. I had one on the Dreamcast. I had one on the Game Boy Advance.
Yes, sir.
And for the love of God, I had like one on the Xbox 360.
Yep.
I think there was one on the DS that I had.
Correct.
Oh my God. Like, I had so many. It was always a Christmas present. Like, whenever I was growing up, like, everyone was like, I don't know what to get him. I played Pac-Man back in my day. Here's the Pac-Man thing. And then they just throw out Namco Museum. Like, I have so many Namco Museums. Like, it's ridiculous. Yeah. And they all have like the same offenders on them. That's like Pac-Man, Galaga, Dig Dug, maybe Pole Position, Galaxian. And then after that, anything else that you get as a bonus. You know what? Here's the rare thing. Back in the days of the early Namco Museum days, they used to put Miss Pac-Man on those compilations. And, Namco doesn't own the Miss Pac-Man license, which is crazy, but anymore. But, like, that's... I used to play Miss Pac-Man a lot with my mom. I might like it more than the original. Honestly.
Fun fact, actually, for anyone that is a fan of Miss Pac-Man specifically, due to its release back in 1982, I believe. I don't remember the exact date off the top of my head, but in Japan, Miss Pac-Man was not bundled with any iteration of Museum until its third go-around.
That's interesting. I wonder why. Why they never did that.
I want to say it's because volumes 1 and 2 came out in Japan in 95 and 96, and I want to say just due to the way the cartridges were set up, because I know volumes 1 and 2 in Japan were, for lack of a better word, they were full because they had a lot of mainline titles, and I know volume 2 had a secret title, so I'm not sure if they physically could fit it on there.
On the discs, like on the PlayStation?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know if I had Volume 2. I just know I had Namco Museum on the PlayStation. Like, it was everywhere, man. If there's one Namco Museum game that I have some super fond memories for, it's the one on the GameCube. I don't remember which one it was, but they had the original and then they had arranged versions of their games. So they had like Dig Dug and then Dig Dug Arranged, and it would be like the arranged version would be like a stage-based world map version of Dig Dug with boss fights and everything, and like eventually you'd end up on the moon digging around and everything. Like it was a cool little game. And then Galaga Arranged was like one of my favorites. Oh, I loved it. It had like a final boss and everything.
I believe that was just Namco Museum, or I believe it was I want to say Portable Collections Namco Museum. I can't remember what the exact naming scheme of that was because
Yeah,
God,
this was on the GameCube. I just know that it was on the GameCube.
right, yeah. I want to say, if I remember correctly, that collection on GameCube had a few different rearrangements with it because it had Dig Dug, Galaga, and Pac-Man arrangements, if I remember correct, as well.
Yeah, they did. They did. They were. I mean, these were like original games too. Like it was like they had like the original arcade games, a la normal Namco Museum, and then they had that. I also had one of the Game Boy Advance that I remember that had like Pac-Land, the 3D one, or I think it was where you could like make Pac-Man jump.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was a fond memory of playing those. And talk about a collection on the GBA that actually did good, because those were actually good. Like, I don't know what the hell happened to Sega and some of their collections on the GBA. Like, oh boy, I don't know what they did, but
Hardware limitations, man.
Man, I mean, I guess because they're doing Mega Drive games,
Right.
and these are like old arcade games from the 80s. But like, whew, boy, um, they definitely did a lot better on the Game Boy Advance. Namco had their shit together on that one.
I believe the biggest version of Namco Museum that was ever released, to my knowledge of my vast memory of Namco Museums, was the 50th anniversary edition that came out in 2005.
Wait, what? Really?
Yeah, so Namco Museum had a 50th anniversary edition that came out in '05. That tailored more toward the arcade accuracy kind of experience. Because I remember it having things like Boskinen, Dragon Spirit, and Rolling Thunder. Basically, it was just a big celebration of their 50 years of work that they kind of went through.
Are you sure it was? Are you sure it was 50 in 2005? I don't think it's 50, is it?
To my knowledge, Namco 50th was 05, 06 time frame, I want to say.
Because I thought they were like in the 80s or so. I don't have all the accuracies. As I don't think.
Right. Let me just see real quick, because I do want to say that, to my knowledge, it was 05, 06.
No, I think 50 might be too high. I know what you're talking about, but I need to know the name of it, and then I could, because I'm pretty sure I played it.
Yes, Namco Museum 50th Anniversary by Digital Eclipse. It was released for GBA, PS2, GameCube, and Windows on August 30th, 2005 for North America.
Holy crap. 50 years in 2005? See, I thought they were like, God, I thought I didn't know it was that old.
It must be like a founding thing or something.
Maybe, yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking. I didn't know there was a Game Boy Advance version of this. This is more research that
because I remember the 50th collection having 16 titles, which included Miss Pac-Man, Galaga, Galaxian, Dig Dug, Pole Position 2, I believe Rally X, Boskinen, Zevious, Mappy, Rolling Thunder, Dragon Spirit, Spy Kid, Pac-Mania, and the 88 version of Galaga as well. Specifically with the handheld variant for GBA that they kind of tailored toward for their portable handheld market. It was only a subset of 5 from the 16, which included Miss Pac, Galaga, Dig Dug, and Rally X.
Interesting. Well, I mean, oh wow, I'm gonna have to replay that sometime.
Yeah, because I remember the big thing with the 50th anniversary variant as well, not just with the games being like its 16 like biggest titles for the company. It was also, I remember having its own like little music menu that it would celebrate all the music through the years. That was also a big piece of the 50th anniversaries because they're really big into their music, because you know how Namco is.
Yeah, man, I gotta tell you, all these compilation discs and everything, it all started out for me just talking about emulation, and then it just all these wow.
It's crazy to think that Namco has nurtured their series so much to the point where they have gotten over 20 different iterations of Namco Museum on so many different platforms in so many different ways.
Yeah, right. I mean, holy crap. That's just a lot. And all the funny thing is it's like how many times can you sit here and play Pac-Man and everything like that? But man, let me just tell you, some of these collections work.
Oh yeah, for sure.
They work. I mean, it's one thing that I like that they're preserving their classics because believe it or not, most old school video games are inaccessible. Like a lot of games are held back from licensing issues. Like Miss Pac-Man now is in the ether apparently now.
Yeah.
But a lot of older games just get lost to the ether because of licensing rights, and you're just not able to play them anymore. And I like when companies try to preserve their games, and we wouldn't have these type of preservation, projects without emulation, whether it's commercial or non-commercial ways. That's what this whole.
Go ahead.
That's what brought this episode up, and then the episode before with all that ranting and everything. It's all about preservation and how passionate I feel about it.
Right. Yeah. That kind of wanted to touch base on a few things with you as well for Namco Museum, because I know Namco Museum was a big
generations, and I'm happy that companies like Sega and Namco do what they do. I really am.
Right, yeah. I know that you grew up on Namco Museum.
But that aside, to be completely honest, my most underrated game in the museum for me is probably, it'd probably be
Dig Dug.
Dig Dug's so beloved, man. Dig Dug is great.
Right,
it'd be the 3D. It'd be 3D Pac-Man or whatever it is, like Pac-Land. I think I don't remember. That's the one that is probably the most underrated. Like,
yeah.
I don't really hear a lot of people talking about that one. Dig Dug though, everyone loves Dig Dug.
Oh yeah, Dig Dug was number one for me growing up. I did want to ask you as well, since you grew up with Namco Museum on the PS1, I know that it had technically 5 different main volumes, and there was also a 6th volume that was exclusive to Japan. Their main thing, with it being the museum title as well, is they had that 3D interactive museum that you could walk around, for it and its iterations of museum. So I was just going to ask you, like, do you feel that the way they preserved with museum, especially in its early days, do you feel like that it enhanced your nostalgia, or did you see the collections and its use of the walkable, viewable interactions in that museum front as something like a gimmick compared to something wanting to contain like a time capsule?
It's a good time capsule, but if I'm going to be completely honest with you, I was too young. Man, I'm a 90s kid. Whenever I played that, I was a young lad. So I had no nostalgia for a lot of these games. A lot of these games I played for the first time on a Namco Museum instead of in an actual arcade, because that was before my time. But I got to tell you, Namco Museum is always going to be a throwback for me.
Oh, yeah.
It's something that I definitely am glad that we have more of.
For sure. Another big one as well, when you think about it, is considering that Namco kind of started on like Sony hardware back in 95 through 98 when it was releasing. Nintendo was not able to get their hands on any form of Namco Museum until 2000 when it came out for Dreamcast and 64.
Right. I never played the 64 variant. Never did that.
Yeah, I don't, there's not a lot of like backtracking that I've seen a lot of people do for the 64 version. I do remember it still having like, the Core 6. It did have a lot of, considering the difference in hardware, it was, I do believe it was a little bit more simplified just due to that constraint, but it was still the same kind of core fundamentals that they were trying to go for, whether or not they were able to display what they were intending as accurately on PlayStation 1 versus 64.
64 was definitely, I mean, it's cartridge based. There's like no loading on 64, so maybe, I don't know. I'm curious to see how that
more toward like a local multiplayer aspect for 64 versus PS1 when it came to that.
It's a I'd have to check. That's that's more research for me to do. I'd love to check that out.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Dreamcast version wasn't really tailored to. I mean, that's one that I remember. If it's like the Dreamcast version, then I have an idea. But seeing more compilations of emulation and stuff like that on Nintendo 64 actually fascinates me because you don't see that a whole lot. I would
Probably
love to
the
get that whole of that.
the one piece of Namco Museum for me that always standed out for me growing up, for the one that I had, because I had the DS cartridge that came out in '07, which included a lot of its first wireless multiplayer variants of a lot of its titles. Specifically, I remember playing through Pac-Man Versus on that collection.
I used to kick
Back in
your
the day.
ass at that game back in the day whenever I'd come visit you. That'd be something else, dude.
Yep.
I remember that.
That was also, I believe that was made by Miyamoto as well, correct?
I don't know. I do not know. I'm not sure. I don't have too much of a fond memory of the DS version. I had it. I remember having it. I just don't remember playing it as much. Whenever I played Namco Museum a lot, it was usually back on the GameCube days. Like I had the PS1 version, but I didn't really reach for it that much unless I was like, desperate or anything. The most time I played in Pac-Man Museum was honestly on the GBA and the GameCube.
Yes.
That was like, especially during car rides on the GBA and then on GameCube, I would reach for it to play Dig Dug Arranged. Oh god.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Love me some Dig Dug Arranged.
So I was going to ask you as well, considering like the difference between a lot of older home console variants versus handhelds, what did you think the best way to experience these arcade classics were? Were you more of a handheld guy or were you more of a home console guy?
Like home console. I mean, honestly, because handheld is cool and all, but you still got to deal with the crunchy GBA sound chip. It doesn't do them complete injustice, but I mean, if you had nothing to do and you were on the go, a quick game of Galaga or Dig Dug or Pac-Man would be kind of a really cool thing to do.
Yeah, and that music could be stuck in your head all night long.
Depending on what you're playing, yeah. God, a lot of memories playing Miss Pac-Man with my mom.
Yeah, kind of circling back on that as well for like having sit down local multiplayer and how arguably influential that Pac-Man has been over the years, just for like the significance of like what Pac-Man brought for a lot of like home families and like first introductions to things with gaming, whether that be through like just doing it on your own solo, going through and eating the ghosts, or like in classic mode, or like actually going through a local multiplayer setting. Because it really had a lot of weight back in the day, for the early days, for like expanding a lot of markets, showing that like hardware could be more than just a something you would set in a singular place and do something. Do you feel that the the old the wireless versions that they kind of came out with, do you think that Pac-Man, ironic as it may be, kind of opened the doors to that expandability for people to be realizing like, hey, why don't we take this and do this with our other games? Because Pac-Man was one of the first in that time period, as far as I can remember, that were the first of being like, hey, let's kind of take this outside, if you will, if you get what I mean.
Kinda. I mean, I've not really known Pac-Man to be a multiplayer game, if I'm honest with you. I mean, the original arcade cabinets anyway.
Right. But just that premise,
Oh, just a running around eating ghosts and everything. Dude, Pac-Man was like something else. I mean, they made a song about him. Like a song came out about it in the 80s, but it was so popular.
Yeah, there was also, oh god, I forget the name of it, but there was also that movie that came out back in, what was it, like 2014, 15, like, that had Miyamoto as a cameo with Pac-Man that, like, half ate him. And he's like, I am your father, or whatever. What was that movie?
Not Miyamoto. It's that game. It's that movie. What's it called? Pixels. It was by
yes.
Yeah, it was Adam Sandler movie.
Yeah.
As all typical Adam Sandler movies. Right. It basically had the same typical Adam Sandler plot, but involving older video games.
Mm-hmm.
No,
that was definitely a trip.
Yeah. I mean, to be completely honest, the Namco Museum always will have a special place in my heart. And Specifically, honestly, Miss Pac-Man. I don't know why my mom liked Miss Pac-Man more. I mean, maybe because it was just a Pac-Man with a bow. She's just it vibed with her more or something. But I always used to play that with her. And then there was an actual Miss Pac-Man game that I would love to get into at some point later on down the line about some of my emulation history that I have. Because there's there was a Miss Pac-Man game that came out for the N64 and PS1 and Dreamcast, and we played the heck out of that too. A lot of Namco in my house, like a lot.
Definitely. And when you think about it, it's also wild when you think about it too, because collections like Namco Museum and Sega Smash Pack and all these collections were largely like, well, at least for, I know in Namco's case with its individual titles, they were confined to their cabinets individually for so long until they kind of put their foot in the door for these, like, emulation compilations with these discs, and, brought them to the mainstream audience on consoles, ensuring that they weren't lost to time. Because the main museum concept on the PS1 editions allowed players to explore their history behind each game that they spent years crafting that they may have never even seen before. And that also boosted, like, Namco's credibility and legacy, because not only were they getting new people and stuff just with all this arcade history preservation first and foremost that they were doing, it was one of the first like high quality standard compilations that set the groundwork for later stuff, like like a few years down the line how Capcom would have I believe the one they have today is Arcade Stadium, and then you would have the modern Steam version for the Sega Classics collections, and I believe there's also...
It's delisted now, thank you, Sega.
Yeah, thanks, Sega, for delisting that. What was the one for... the newest one for Atari? Was it Anthology?
Yeah, it was some... I don't know if it's Atari Flashback or...
No, Flashback was the old plug-and-plays.
That's right. Oh, God, there was like this Atari one that came out that was like crazy. And they had like so many games on there. I know what you're talking about.
I think it was Anthology. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it may have been. I haven't picked it up, honestly, and I need to, because I am always a fan of the older games.
Oh yeah, for
always.
Sure. And it's fun because you see all these companies doing this just to keep the arcade classics relevant, to keep the newer kids kind of in touch with like where the roots are for a lot of these older companies that they might not have a lot of information on.
Dude, I say just bring back some arcades. I mean, arcades are still around. They're around. Don't get me wrong. You can go to a Dave & Buster's but like, we need to bring back some arcades. Right. Get people in there. There are still arcade developers out there. They're just far and few, and then a lot of their arcade games come to consoles. But like, man, I don't know, man. I miss a good light gun shooter.
Nostalgia in a lot of the older audiences for today's market. Just in gaming in general.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, this is another topic that I would love to continue on, because I'm just talking about Namco, and there's so much more to talk about, so much more research that I haven't really done. I mean,
you know what I can't wait to make an episode on if we continue this?
What?
The formation of how Namco kind of became what it is today with, Bandai Namco, and how that stretched out into a lot more different alleyways.
You're forgetting about another company. There's a whole nother company we could have been talking about whenever it comes to arcade compilations and everything. Can you guess who it is? Capcom.
Yep, I was gonna say I just mentioned them.
Yeah, my goodness, they're no strangers to compilation collections too. But maybe we can get into this at another time. Maybe I'll have another part 2 of Namco coming up.
Certainly.
There's like a lot more to talk about this
for sure.
So that's gonna do it for this week, and I got some research to do. So for now, stay accessible. Remember that.
Indeed, stay accessible, everyone. Thank you.